What was the best moments you've experienced while playing Dungeons and Dragons? The time we planned and executed a heist to steal a fortune belonging to our rogue's corrupt father. There was a lot involved, from using magical bird familiar to reckon the keep where the money was stored, to my shape-shifting character taking on the form of a guard to sneak some of us inside, to recruiting a posse of disgruntled locals to help us cart away numerous bars of silver and gold. But the best part was when, after we set off some magical alarms on our way out, the father rushed into his vault to check on his fortune and threw back the tarp covering his stack of gold and silver bars, only to find that the precious metal was all gone, and the tarp was covering a live bear. Suddenly bear. My party went from revered heroes of the town they saved to hated outcasts with an official restraining order approved by the king himself when they tried to prank an old merchant and ended up murdering a beloved town elder then trying to steal his mayorship. This sounds like somebody had to roll more than a single one to accomplish that. Telling my party that the main archery store is called Target. Thinking about that brief pause followed by a few sighs and reluctant laughter still makes me crack up. Nice. My name was Doug Windchaser but I insisted everyone called me Duckblade. Well, my whole party just kept calling me Duckblade or Duckblade or Duckblade. I had a similar experience. I told them my name was Elvi Sugartips. They thought I said Sugates. It never changed for months of playing, and I even have a mug from them with Elvi Sugartits. Safe to say my character has been renamed without my permission. Somewhat inadvertently ended up stealing from and systematically dismantling a merchant family's budding business across multiple cities. They were completely unrelated to the story but we just kept bumping into them. My character was a broken clock right time of day kind of character. The type that would eat the only lit candle in a room just so the other party members wouldn't be able to see when they woke up. The highlight of our campaign came when I was having such shitty dice rolls that I decided to just aim for the space next to the enemy I was fighting to see what would happen. I rolled a 1, so I missed that space and hit the enemy instead. On my very first D&D session, our party was going on a treasure hunt and had just encountered a monster the DM called a knuckle-dragger or something like that. He had intended us to fight it like a boss battle, but before we fought our paladin intimidated it to stand down for a turn so we all got a free action. At least, half of us would. Since the DM rolled and said that it was so hungry that it will only be stunned long enough that it will run on hunger alone. This worked great for my character. I play a sneaky human monk with literally no backbone to her and who is now trying really hard not to fight the giant ogre creature we're looking at. Just before we encountered it, we had raided a goblin camp, which included having a whole bunch of jerky with us. My free action was to immediately offer this knuckle-dragger all the jerky we got so that maybe he would get full and no one would fight. Win-win. A few lucky rolls later, the fight ends before it began, with a healthily fed knuckle-dragger, some level ups, and allowing us to skip a few more traps in the temple. We adopted him by the way. His name is George. The paladin feeds him. Knuckle-dragger is the first boss in Borderlands 2. It's a bullimong which is a creature that has 4 giant arms and 2 thin looking legs. I'll always be happy about that time my party ran into some goblins hauling oil into a ship. They opened up a barrel of oil and tossed some on the goblins, and then lit them on fire. The goblins, not being that stupid, jumped in the water. So then the party dumped oil, using a floating hand to cover a wide area, all over the water and lit that on fire too. I was DMing a campaign with a new group. Only one guy had ever played before. 5 players total. They had a ship, and were traveling by sea to new quests and transporting some goods for cash when they landed. I had in mind to have them and their ship captured by pirates and have them escape later. So I sent 2 full warships of them full of pirates, hopelessly outnumbering them thinking, there's no way they can get out of this quest. They panicked. As the pirates got closer, arrows started flying. What did they do? Well, one of the goods they had was a Heil Grog, and they had a heck of a rogue archer. So, they wrapped a couple arrows in rope, dunked them, lit them, and fired them into the sails of the other ships. I made 3 separate rolls for the sequence of events, between the hit, the rope holding up, and it successfully lighting up the other sails. Per ship. They freaking nailed it both times, on all accounts using teamwork and assists on skills. They burned 2 fully loaded heavy pirate ships at sea, using 2 arrows. I was in awe. I had to give them extra XP for their ingenuity. My players had to fight a dragon. They rolled shockingly well throughout the fight and were surprisingly winning. So being in the open I logically had the dragon flee. This was surprising given they were only level 3 and only bad rolls from the dragon had kept them alive. Most everyone got an attack of opportunity and or ran as it thrashed out of the tower making it collapse, but the half-orc barbarian wasn't having any of it. She had a custom weapon from a special orc bad guy the party had fought. It was essentially a hook on a chain you could throw and drag people to you, and her usual great sword as a weapon. Thus will become relevant shortly. As the dragon flew up she said she wanted to grapple it. Rolled, succeeded. Okay, you're holding onto its tail. She then spent the next couple rounds as this massive dragon flew hundreds of feet into the air, climbing to the middle of its back. The dragon was rolling and thrashing trying to throw her off, but she rolled great every time and hung in there. Then she wanted to throw the hook and latch it onto the dragon's face or eye. Rolls a freaking 19. Hook lodged in dragon's eye and now she's riding it through the air like a venom-breathing bull at the world's scariest rodeo. Then she started hacking at the dragon's wing. At this point she's like 300 feet in the air and is expecting this to just be a badass way to kill herself. First attack hits, okay damage. Second attack crits, almost max damage. I say that the wing shears free in a gout of blood, the brittle wing bones splintering under the weighty blow. Now she's riding an almost dead dragon as it plummets to the earth from a height that would kill anything like a green Slim Pickens planning to go out in a blaze of glory. As the dragon and orc smash into a building in the town, the other PCS run there to surely find their friend dead. Well, half-orcs have a feature that makes them particularly hard to kill, and I figured the spirits she worshipped would be pretty dang impressed by such a move, so I gave her one last chance. Roll a con save with disadvantage. Non-D&D players, this means you roll 2 20-sided dice and take the worst of the 2 rolls. First roll is a natural 20. Everyone is laughing, saying if only it wasn't disadvantage. Second roll, another freaking natural 20. Table loses its mind. The other characters dig through the rubble and among what is left of the splattered dragon they find a barely alive, unconscious half-orc barbarian with a giant grin frozen on her face. I ruled even with healing magic she'd be so wounded she needed a week to recover, so the party had to drag her around in a cart for a while. But thus began the reoccurring legend of the Dragon Slayer through my games. I hope she finds a place amongst the gods or stars when she passes. Using spring-loaded gauntlets meant for quickly deploying hidden daggers to house and launch small snakes at enemies, and the look on everyone's face when I did this. I'm not super good at the roleplay aspect of the game. I'm a new player, just under a year of playing, but my group disbanded after college ended. Anyway, my party was in a fight from a setup stealth mission gone wrong. One person was unconscious, the other struggling, and I had the big muscular barbarian attacking me. My DM said he was a Russian Armstrong from Full Metal Alchemist. I was pretty low on HP, and no potions or healing spells as the unconscious player was the cleric. Out of a random turn of events, I asked the DM if instead of attacking, if I could use a charisma check to flirt with him. He said sure. By the way, my character was male. Rolled a natural 20. We made out for 2 turns, and on the 3rd turn I failed my roll, so he stopped kissing me and attacked me. On my next turn I said, as my character, I can't believe you. I thought you were different than the rest, that you and I could make all this fighting come to a standstill by the other seeing the true love you and I had for each other. I see that you just used me for personal gain, and tossed me aside like common trash. I've never felt so abused in my entire life. Started crying and dashed away from battle, my DM said, after he technically has an attack of opportunity to use on you, but he's not going to use it. The other player convinced the enemy I made out with to come after me and beg for forgiveness, and he managed to take out 2 people fighting him, and since the big barbarian left he got scared and ran, so we ended up winning the fight, I guess. The barbarian enemy became an unintended love interest for the next while. All because I didn't want my character to die. Haha. Reminds me of that rolling repeated natural 1s thing, where he brings the barbarian home to meet his parents. Party was fighting Orcus. Final fight of our entire campaign. Fate of the universe resting on our hands. My bard had an ability to dominate them and force them to do what I want on their turns. They get to save against it each turn. but I also had an ability that allowed me to replace up to 4 rolls with whatever I roll. Since it was based on enemies and an AoE, I was only able to get 2 in each time. We kept a minion alive just for this. I also had an ability that allowed me to reroll any d20 I roll 3 times a day, so I cheesed the frick out of those 3 abilities. Orcus ended up getting dominated, crit himself because I rolled a nat 20 and replaced his attack roll with it, made him fail his save with a super low roll, then did the roll thing again, crit him again, and made him fail. So he was essentially hitting himself for 3 turns of combat, 2 of them being crits. He died from hitting himself and my DM was visibly just god dang it. My first campaign was with some twisted but hilarious friends. We had a couple people with really high charisma and used the local townsfolk in unspeakable, but efficient, ways. At one point, we were accompanied by a local dwarven smith with a martial past of some sort, and we needed to explore a creepy cathedral. Having heard some horrible skittering coming from the entrance, none of us wanted to go first, so we got the dwarf drunk and spoke of glory to be won in leading a courageous charge. Not content to simply scout, we also managed to hide several bottles of highly flammable liquid on him for after the great victory and poured a drink over him for luck. When he made his brave and glorious charge, a fire arrow in the back turned him into a rather unwilling suicide bomber and cleared out a nasty nest of spiders that lay in wait. Our paladin was lawful good, but also hopelessly gullible, and went along with our depraved deeds without complaint. Our second, and more horrible transgression was just soon after this fiery escapade, when we used a local boy who had been helping us to find his friend as a fishing lure to draw out the queen spider from a pit that looked like certain death to enter. We all set up with bows and some large pieces of rubble at the mouth of the hole, lowered in the poor hapless fellow, and dropped everything we had on the spider queen when she came to claim the morsel. Unfortunately, we were only able to recover the bottom half of the lad, but our entirely amoral and sex-crazed druid declared, well, at least we've got the good half. The druid and I were the Oakenrod brothers, an incestuous pair that used every opportunity to slip in references to our somewhat deviant ways. As we found out later, our dearly departed dwarf actually had quite the sex dungeon beneath his house, and we were sure to make proper use of the facilities for our raucous lovemaking as soon as the group left us alone in the house. I think the DM left that day a little stunned by what he had witnessed. Our paladin was lawful good, but also hopelessly gullible, and went along with our depraved deeds without complaint. Oh look, what fine yet rustic architecture. I should go to examine it further.
Oh, hey, don't mind me. I'm just working hard on the next Dude Man video. Hey, by the way, if you want more awesome content like this, you should check that channel out. What you should. You should want to watch more awesome content. Then head on over to Dude Man. I'm Lunar Steve and I'm the host over there. Go give it a look. I hope you like what you see.